Super Mario Maker was uniquely magical. It paired an inventive idea, making your own Mario courses, with a powerful and wonderfully simple interface, and wrapped it all up in a delightfully charming and bizarre package. It basically poured an entire Mario toy box into your lap and asked you to go nuts. Wanna try stacking a bullet bill on top of a Monty Mole with wings? Sure, why not? Or, what happens if you give a mushroom to a Wiggler and place him underwater? There's only one way to find out. The possibilities seem bound only by your imagination, and the 100 enemy limit. I became obsessed with this game, sinking over 800 hours into all kinds of random creations, whether it was remaking arcade classics like Frogger or Space Invaders, or basing my levels in classic Disney rides like Tower of Terror, or exploring Bowser's, throne room. I even had the dubious distinction of creating the level that's killed more Marios than any other in the world. Sorry Mario. So needless to say, I was stoked for Super Mario Maker 2. After all, it's Mario Maker but with more. More tools, additional level themes, a full story mode, multiplayer, online, and the list goes on. And hey, you can wear a catsuit while driving a car. What's not to love, right? But the real question is, even with all this new content, can it recapture the magic of the original game? Or was that just lightning in a bottle? The answer, for me at least, is surprisingly complicated, and will likely depend entirely on your expectations and experience of the series so far. Especially since Super Mario Maker appeals to different people for different reasons, whether it's more as a creator like myself, or more as a player like I know many of you are, or maybe somewhere in between. And as one who played the original game mostly as a creator, there's a lot to be excited about in Super Mario Maker 2, as every new object opens a cascading range of possibilities. Slopes, for instance, are a subtly fantastic addition that make courses feel more organic while also providing more options to control enemy placement, even if they can be a bit clunky to place due to them being handled more like a platform than actual terrain. Then there's a new custom scroll option, which provides more control over the presentation of your stage. And I found the new scroll stop ability to be especially useful, as it helps to preserve screen real estate, essentially resulting in bigger levels, while also allowing you to better frame specific sequences in your level. And I absolutely adore some of the new objects, such as the on and off switch, which I've already put to good use in recreating the U vs. Boo stages from Super Mario Bros. Deluxe. Hey, someone had to do it! And then there's the new level themes, which might just be one of the highlights. Because whether it's desert, snow, or jungle, you likely won't have any trouble finding a theme to match your needs this time around. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the fantastic new music too, both during gameplay for styles that never existed in the original games, but also especially when creating a stage in those new themes. Just listen to how upbeat the editing music is for the Super Mario Bros. Sky theme. It is so good. And then there's a cool groove going on in Super Mario Bros. 3's desert. And speaking of level themes, each one also has a night version in the retro styles, which not only lends each a different look, but also unique gameplay attributes, whether it's reversing gravity when underground, allowing you to swim in the air of a castle, or turning power-ups against you in the ground style. I've only just begun playing around with the possibilities, and I can only imagine what the community will end up doing with them all. But of course, the star of the show is a brand new Super Mario 3D World style, which gives 2D Mario his largest repertoire yet, including things like long jumps, backflips, rolls, and more, along with introducing entirely new objects and mechanics like the catsuit, Koopa Troopa car, clear pipes, or even enemies that attack from the background. Mario has never felt this acrobatic in a mainline 2D game before, and it's an absolute blast to play with. Clambering up trees, pouncing through the air, and taking a car out on a joyride are pleasures I didn't know I wanted in Mario Maker. And yet, here they are. The new enemies open up some creative possibilities too, whether it's jockeying for position against a literal bully, or using a bonsai bill to drill a path for you in real time. Taken all together, 3D World definitely stands apart from the other four more retro styles. Perhaps a little too much. Because the 3D World style essentially exists in a vacuum, forcing you to commit either to it or the other retro styles before you even get started, as swapping between styles at any point wipes the entire slate clean, forcing you to rebuild the entire level from scratch. It's a bit of a buzzkill, as our own John's fiancée can attest to when she quit out frustration after realizing the power-up she built her level around was found in a different style, meaning she would have to rebuild the entire thing. And this is an issue compounded by the fact that 3D World is missing Mario Maker staples like tracks, vines, and even stackable enemies, which makes no sense considering the 3D games are the ones that introduced that element in the first place. Even some of the new elements like the angry sun, dotted blocks for the on and off switch, and night themes are missing from this style entirely. And that goes both ways, with new elements in the 3D world style like the on and off spike traps or ant trooper enemies being found only in that style. Now, this oddly disparate feature set doesn't ruin the game, and at the end of the day, there's still far more content to play around with here than there was before. But this issue does chip away at the more relaxed, laissez-faire approach of the original game, which went out of its way to ensure every object had an equivalent in all 4 styles. Whereas now, being forced to rebuild a stage from scratch just for switching styles feels oddly punishing. On the flip side, while the 4 retro styles are still fully intercompatible with each other, even some of their new elements feel oddly restrictive, whether it's how the new goals feature is limited to just 1 at a time, or how the angry sun is more like a lonely sun with how only 1 is allowed per area, with 0 room for customization. Now, when it comes to the creation process itself, the user interface is still wonderfully simple on the whole, but it too has seen a few tweaks. The biggest change comes in the form of selecting objects, which are now organized by category into a series of wheels. It's ideal if you're using a controller, and can be faster overall if you know exactly what you're looking for. Though, as one who sometimes experiences mad creator's block, I do kinda miss being able to lay everything out at once on the Wii U to help spur some ideas. But one welcome tweak is they can now simply long press on any object to bring up all of its alternate forms, which replaces having to shake them or dragging a power up onto them in the original game, making it both faster and easier to keep track of this time around. Now, how you actually control the interface has seen some pretty significant changes, especially since the original Super Mario Maker had the distinction of being one of the very few games to realize the potential of the Wii U gamepad. I rather enjoy the interplay of creating levels on the gamepad and then testing them out at full size on the TV. So obviously things had to change for the Switch version due to its single screen focus, and the results are a bit mixed, and is largely dependent on whether you're playing docked or in handheld form. Because creating stages in TV mode with a controller is just a few hairs short of a total disaster. Sure, it technically works, but it's slow and very awkward. Selecting objects is tedious, requiring menu shortcuts and multiple button presses, and dragging the sluggish cursor around the screen isn't an experience I'd wish upon my worst enemy. Mercifully, editing in handheld mode is much more pleasurable, with the touchscreen providing instant access to most of the main functions. Although I do still recommend getting a capacitive stylus as it's both faster and more precise in your finger, and brings the experience that much closer to the Wii U original, even if it still falls just a little short. And that's partially because editing a stage feels far more cramped than it did before, as the menus now obscure about a quarter of your total work area, which is a lot. And even though you can temporarily hide them with a button press, it's a clunky workaround that only offers temporary respite. Annoyingly, the button shortcuts for deleting, selecting, and copying objects are now toggles instead of just holding the button like in the original game. And even more baffling, selecting and copying have been assigned to the same set of triggers, requiring you to toggle past one of them first to reach the other. I still screw it up after dozens of hours with the game. It doesn't even make sense, there are 2 separate buttons there, why don't they do different things? And as one who isn't a huge fan of playing my Switch in handheld form, I do miss being able to instantly test my stage on the TV with a proper set of speakers. I really have no idea why there isn't an option to use one of the Joy-Cons as a gyro-based pointer for when you're editing on the TV, but c'est la vie. Perhaps the most disappointing aspect of the interface is the lack of most any meaningful quality of life improvements. Manually filling your stage with terrain still gets pretty tiresome, often requiring multiple passes to fill it all in, and it really makes me long for an autofill option. Tweaking the layout of your stage on a screen-by-screen basis is still also a major pain, and requires painstakingly dragging small sections over one by one by one. Although to the game's credit, the new zoom out feature does at least let you select 2 vertical screens worth at once, which is doubled out of the original, so that has improved a little bit. And finally, there still isn't a way to copy segments between the primary and sub areas, which is a total drag if you realize halfway through they need to swap them during the creation process. Yes, it happened to be a bunch in the original game, and it still is now. It's not easy being me. So that's the creator side of things in a nutshell, but if you're more on the player side of the spectrum, then you might be happy to discover that Super Mario Maker 2 has an entire single-player story mode, in which Peach's castle has suddenly disappeared and Mario's left to clean up the mess as usual. To do so, he'll have to play through over 100 Nintendo-created levels in order to earn enough cash to pay for the rebuild. Now the levels themselves are pretty great across the board and run the gamut from your typical Mario fare, being competent but forgettable, to the incredibly clever, such as having to choose ahead of time which item to carry with you into a puzzle-based room, or exploring an ancient desert temple built entirely around tilting platform puzzles. There's some pretty neat stuff to be found in there, even if the mode as a whole is far from essential, but it will at least give you a few solid hours of quality content, along with some pretty humorous dialogue, while also possibly providing you with some ideas for your own level creations. But perplexingly, these courses only exist within the confines of story mode, meaning there's no way to import them into the creator to tinker with them yourself, or see what makes them tick. In fact, the game offers no pre-built templates at all, at least beyond the random selection that the title screen might give you. Even the Wii U version offered up a selection of sample courses to get you started. But here, you'll almost always find yourself starting from a fresh slate, which is a bit disappointing. Now, when it comes to finding stages created by other people, the process has never been better, as you can now actually filter levels by the tags creators assign them themselves. So if you only want to play underwater levels featuring puzzles made by some dude in Europe, you totally can. At least if you're playing by yourself, because Super Mario Maker 2 also introduces multiplayer for the first time, both locally and online. Which should be pretty freaking awesome, on paper at least, but in reality, it's hamstrung by a series of bewildering design choices. But I'm getting a bit ahead of myself, because on a pure gameplay level, the multiplayer in all of its forms delivers a similar level of controlled chaos as the new Super Mario Bros. Series, allowing players to bounce off and bop each other all over the place, often to hilarious results. It truly can be a great time if you're playing with the right group of friends. Which, of course, is something that's impossible to do at the moment since the game only pairs you with complete strangers when online. Now, Nintendo has said that they're looking into addressing this with a future update, but we don't review games here based on promises, which means the only way to play with your friends is either on the same system cooperatively or via local wireless, which annoyingly requires one of the players to have an internet connection. And it's for the worst possible reason, because regardless of whether you're playing online or locally via wireless play, there's no way to choose what courses you actually play. Instead, the levels are chosen completely at random based on difficulty. And since every stage in Super Mario Maker 2 technically supports multiplayer whether the creator intended for it to or not, you'll often find yourself ending up in stages that were clearly never designed with it in mind. Now sure, this can lead to some pretty funny situations, but it's a novelty that I suspect will wear thin pretty quickly. So yeah, if there's multiple switches involved at all, you're completely at the mercy of the random stage selector, which is super lame. What this means is that the only way to play stages of your own choosing with multiple people is by doing so on the same system, on the same screen. And even here there's a catch, because of course there is. And that catch is that instead of just looking up a level and clicking play as you'd expect to, because that's how it works when playing by yourself, you instead have to manually download every course to your console first, and then navigate to the download section and access the level from there, which quickly gets very tedious, especially when you consider that you probably want to delete those courses at some point too, in order to make room for more, assuming multiplayer holds your interest for that long at least. So this was all pretty frustrating for me to discover, especially since I had already designed a couple of levels entirely around the idea of a versus mode in which every player has their own screen, only to realize the only way I can ever play these levels is if they randomly pop up. And finally, we have a matter of the overall presentation, because while it is mostly polished, it also feels a little bland. The original Super Mario Maker was weird, and it knew it. It delighted in the bizarre, as was made clear the very moment you started up the game. And most of that quirky personality has been stamped out of the sequel. Whether it's a weird startup sequences, title screen Easter eggs,
Here I come.
startling death animations, or the random fly swatting game, it's almost all gone with little new to replace it. Now look, these details obviously aren't essential in the gameplay sense, but they did go a long way in making the original Super Mario Maker feel special and different, whereas now it feels more corporate, almost as if it were new Super Mario Maker. And as part of this all, I have to mention the missing amiibo costumes, which really bums me out as one who loved picking just the right one to match the level theme that I was creating. And this actually does have some gameplay ramifications too, as it gave Small Mario brick-breaking abilities, which is something that can't currently be replicated in Super Mario Maker 2, along with a few other details like pipe stacking that I don't want to get into too much, but some of them will definitely annoy hardcore creators in the original game. So this brings me to my overall thoughts, and I'm still trying to work it all out myself. On the one hand, there is straight up more content here, and a lot of it is really fun to play with, including pretty much the entirety of the Super Mario 3D World style, which really is just a joy to use, even with its limitations. And then there's just something hilarious about trying to outrun a poisonous one-up at night that has the determination of a Terminator. And yet, I didn't find myself as enamored with the entire package as I did the first time around. Rather than finding myself constantly in awe of the possibilities, I was instead butting up against the game's limitations far more often than before. And when combined with my frustrations with the controls and interface, the baffling multiplayer system, and overall lacking personality, Super Mario Maker 2 just didn't resonate with me on quite the same level as before. Now don't get me wrong, Super Mario Maker wasn't perfect either, but I was a lot more willing to overlook its issues back when everything was entirely fresh than I am now 4 years and 800 gameplay hours later. There just isn't quite enough new stuff here to make up for my frustrations and how familiar it all feels. But again, I realize I'm a bit of an edge case here, as I doubt many people played the original game nearly as much as I did, which means there's a good chance you might not share many, if any, of these same issues that I have. And I truly hope that you don't, because I want you to experience the same sense of magic and delight that I did the first time around. Especially because Super Mario Maker 2 might overall be the better game. It just wasn't the better experience for me. At least not yet. So for right now, at this moment in time, I'd like Super Mario Maker 2. And just as my feelings toward it have steadily improved over the past 3 weeks as I've better accepted the game for what it is rather than what it isn't, I wouldn't be surprised if my adoration continues to grow, especially alongside the community that's sure to build up with the game. And with that, thank you for watching, and make sure to click the subscribe button for more on Super Mario Maker 2 and everything else Nintendo Switch. We'll catch you later. Bye.